I'm going to talk a little bit about the first wave of Filipinos who came to the United States. In the layout of different time segments, one of the waves, is being the first one, is 1587 to 1905. There are several key parts to this wave. The 1587 refers to the landing of Filipinos with the Spanish in Morro Bay due to a storm and some other events where they came ashore, and now there's a monument erected there marking the first known landing by Filipinos in the North American continent.
As you all know, in 1521, Magellan died in the Philippines. The Philippines was introduced into the Western world. 45 years later, his nephew Miguel Lopez de Legazpi came back to the Philippines and started the galleon trade. That was our first exposure to the Western world. When the galleon trade was started, galleons which were built and made in Manila and Cavite out of Philippine wood, sailed by Filipino munition workers, practically enslaved, with Spanish taskmasters, boarded the ship. It takes them a year to go from Manila to Acapulco, Acapulco to Baja California, Louisiana, and the rest of the states.
Another piece is the St. Malo settlement in Louisiana. This settlement was started by Filipinos who frankly sort of jumped ship from the Spanish, some as early as 1763. They stayed there, they developed villages, they intermarried.
So during the Civil War, there were Filipinos here already supplying daing and dried fish to the troops of Andrew Jackson, or Old Hickory. And there were some pirates also, Filipino pirates in Louisiana.
And finally there was a 1904 St. Louis exposition in which Philippines was featured, and Filipinos came, and supposedly the American public was going to be educated about Philippines and Filipinos. Unfortunately, there was also sort of a presenting those who lived up in the hills as sort of representing the Philippines.
The second wave of the Filipino migration to the United States is from 1905 to 1945. We have a continuation of the government pensionados, or the government scholars, again, who were sent to the United States for education and to have gone back to the Philippines. Some did and some did not. Also at this time frame, we have the workers that were recruited to work at the fields of Hawaii, workers that eventually ended up in the fields of California and the canneries of Alaska.
From Oregon, my wife Marissa Noonan will be starting off the interview. This is September the 11th, 1994.
Could you please give us your name? Yeah. What is your name? Joe Apiado. And where are you from in the Philippines?
San Fernando La Union.
San Fernando La Union.
Yeah.
And when were you born?
99, May 13.
May 13th. May 10th, 1909.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to come to the United States?
Well, I like to see the United States.
You wanted to see?
Yeah.
Could you tell me your name again?
Vicente Castolo.
So you were born in September 1904 in Tayug, Pangasinan.
During this time frame, we also had a lot of different type of workers that came. We interviewed some that ended up in Detroit in the automobile industry, and some ended up also as domestic workers.
If a young Filipino American would ask for an advice, what advice would you give?
Now,
save your money. Study. Study because nowadays you almost got to be a college graduate to have a decent job.
One of the earliest arrivals in Oregon was Marciano Pizarro. He came to America in 1925 and joined the U.S. Navy in 1941. During the war, his wife and daughter were sent to a Japanese concentration camp.
Irene is the daughter, and Lola Hati is his wife. And basically, they were put in a concentration camp where in North Portland, where the Expo Center is now located. And a lot of Lola Hati's relatives were interned in Eastern Oregon. So her family was basically divided.
The usual career path of the Filipinos in the 20s started from dishwashing before they became busboys and other kitchen work. George Pimentel came to the U.S. in 1927 from San Fernando, La Union province. His widow, Mary Pimentel, remembers.
He came when he was 18 years old. You know, during that time, Philippines was still a colony of the U.S., so all they needed was a passport, visa. So they could come and go. So, and then started working here first, well, many places, he said, to have something to eat.
The third wave are those Filipinos that came over to the United States from after the World War II, from 1945 to 1965. Some of those are also the war brides. And
it was on October 20th, 1944 that General MacArthur returned to the Philippines and began the liberation of the Philippines. As I said earlier, our speakers all came to the United States in the 20s or 30s, and they answered the call when the war started in their homeland of the Philippines. Now, our first speaker is one of those Filipinos who risked their lives to liberate the Philippines. He is married to the former Calbayog City beauty queen, the former Miss Dolores Bartolome, who was one of the World War II war brides. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Mr. Alejandro Flores.
I remind you that when I came from overseas, I captured my wife. Yeah, that's why they are considered the wives before we came to the States. Came here without passport. They came with the orders with me.
Thousands of those serving in the U.S. Armed Forces married Filipino women. These spouses were called war brides, a term derived from the War Brides Act of 1945 that permitted them to immigrate to the United States on a non-quota classification.